Artificial Intelligence Before the LLM-Era, A Personal Journey from Optical Physics to Glucose Prediction, number 1698, June 24, 2026, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, category, Medical AA. Preface for readers: eat more protein and fresh vegetables, eat less red meat and processed food, reduce portions if overweight, eating a little less will not hurt you, overeating for years will. Exercise daily, walk at least 7,000 to 8,000 steps, drink 85 to 100 oz to 0.5 to 3.0 liters of water daily. Sleep 6 to 7 hours each night. Manage stress, avoid draining people and unnecessary conflicts, put your health first. Wealth, fame, and power mean little without health and life. Preface: This is my first research note describing how I developed the AI-based postprandial glucose PPG prediction component of my medical research system. As I was writing this article about my meal photo AI-based system, I remembered a personal experience from more than 4 decades ago. In 1983, at age 36, I collaborated with a linguistics professor at Stanford University to explore whether computers could someday process and understand human language in a meaningful way. We spent approximately 6 months discussing the linguistic requirements necessary for such system. At the conclusion of those discussions, I reached an engineering judgment. The concept itself appeared feasible, but the available hardware was not. At that time in early 1980, computer processing speed, memory capacity, and data storage were simply too limited to support the enormous complexity of human language. Therefore, we abandoned the project. The idea was ahead of the technology. 43 years later, looking back to I find it remarkable that systems resembling those early discussions eventually emerge in the form of large language models (LLMs) and conversational AI systems such as Chat, which became widely available in early 2024. I certainly do not claim to have invented these technologies. However, I take quiet satisfaction in recognizing that the potential and fundamental direction seemed visible long before the necessary computing infrastructure became available. My interest in AI began even earlier, during my graduate school years at MIT around 1973 to 1975. Where I studied artificial intelligence, machine learning, and pattern recognition under Professor Patrick Henry Winston, father of academic AI. Throughout most of my professional career, AI remained an important underlying theme, whether in semiconductor chips design, automation, engineering software systems, mathematical modeling, or later in my medical research work. The meal photo glucose prediction system described in this article represents another branch of that same intellectual journey, and like today's language models, this system was built upon optical physics, image processing, mathematics, physics, engineering, and long-term pathophysiology data collection. Nevertheless, the underlying objective remains similar: extracting meaningful patterns from large amounts of information in order to improve decision-making. In many ways, this project reflects a lifelong belief that the most powerful industrial applications of AI are not those that reflect human thinking, but those that help humans understand complex systems more deeply. Introduction to AI. When people hear the term artificial intelligence AI, they usually think of large language models (LLMs), chatbots, image generators, and systems that process human language. These technologies are impressive and have attracted enormous public attention. However, they represent only one branch of AI. My own AI research followed a very different path. Long before the recent popularity of LLMs, I was exploring whether photographs of meals containing a variety of food components could be automatically converted into quantitative information capable of predicting postprandial glucose PPG, or post-meal glucose levels. At that time, my interest was not language. My interest was understanding the relationships among food, metabolism, diabetes, and human pathophysiology. This journey began more than 20 years ago and eventually evolved into an AI-based medical system running on my iPhone. The system analyzed meal photographs, estimated carbohydrate and sugar contents, and then predicted post-meal glucose responses. I used this system continuously from June 2015 through December 2023, a period of more than 8.5 years. Looking back today, I realized that this project was not only an AI project, it was also a study of optical physics, image processing, mathematics, metabolism, pathophysiology, and human learning. An AI system built from physics. AI development logic was fundamentally different from the architecture used by today's LLMs. The starting point was not language. The starting point was optical physics. Every digital photograph consists of millions of pixels. Each pixel contains information regarding color type, intensity, brightness, and light distribution. These optical signals are converted into digital numbers by the camera sensor. The challenge I faced was determining how those digital numbers relate to actual food composition. Over many years, I gradually established correlations between image characteristics and the estimated carbohydrate and sugar contents of meals through continuous experimentation and refinement. My medical AI system gradually learned to recognize meal patterns from image data and transform those patterns into nutritional estimates. The overall process was relatively straightforward. Photograph gives pixel analysis, gives carbohydrate estimation, gives glucose prediction, although simple in appearance. This process integrated knowledge from multiple disciplines: optical physics, digital image processing, mathematics, artificial intelligence, food nutrition, metabolism, pathophysiology, diabetes research. The final glucose prediction did not come from internet databases or language models. It came from converting optical information into nutritional estimates and then applying pathophysiological models developed through years of diabetes research. The importance of long-term data strength of this system did not come from software alone. Its strength came from persistence. Over 5 years, from 2010 to 2014, my team members and I worked continuously in my kitchen to experiment with and study a variety of food and nutritional components. Beginning in June 2015, I photographed nearly every meal I consumed, 3 meals per day. 365 days per year, more than 8.5 years. This produced more than 9,000 meal photographs and their corresponding glucose measurements. The purpose was not merely to collect images. The purpose was to collect sufficient information so that reliable patterns could be recognized and recorded. Many people underestimate the importance of long-term observation. A few weeks of data may reveal short-term behavior. A few months may reveal trends. However, understanding a physiological system often requires years. Only after years of continuous data collection did the model become sufficiently stable and predictive. The attached graphic diagram accompanying this article summarizes the results from June 2015 through December 2023 using 90-day moving averages. The predicted PPG curve and the measured PPG curve tracked each other remarkably well throughout the entire observation period. The correlation coefficient reached R equals 0.88 for 88.4%, with R squared equals 0.781 for a biological system influenced by food composition, portion size, exercise, stress, sleep, weather, illness, and many other factors. This level of agreement is significant. More importantly, the model captured the dynamics of the system. It followed the long-term rises, declines, plateaus, peaks, and valleys. It was not merely matching average values. It was reflecting the system's behavior. When the tool has finished its job, many people assume that data collection should continue forever. But I reached a different conclusion. By December 2023, I felt the system had already achieved its educational purpose. The AI model had already taught me the pathophysiological relationships among food composition, portion size, carbohydrate intake, sugar intake, and postmeal glucose PPG response. The pattern had become deeply embedded in my thinking. At that point, continuing to photograph every meal no longer provided substantial new knowledge. The effort required to store, organize, and maintain the image database continued to increase. At the same time, my research interests expanded into other areas, including various mortality diseases, such as cardiovascular diseases, chronic kidney diseases, neuropathy, retinopathy, dementia, cancer, stroke, epilepsy, neuroscience, and integrated risk modeling. Every researcher has only 24 hours available each day. Eventually, one must decide where those hours can generate the greatest value. Therefore, I stopped collecting meal photographs in December 2023. The decision was not a sign of failure. It was a sign that the predicted PPG system had already succeeded. I needed to shift my attention to other critical research subjects. AI and human learning. Perhaps the most important lesson from this research project is that the ultimate product was not the software. The software was simply a tool. The true product was a deeper understanding of diet and glucose after more than 8 years of continuous use. Many of the patterns previously identified by the AI system became internalized. The software trained my brain and intuition. Eventually, I could estimate the impact of a meal without relying on photographs or the system. In other words, the knowledge had moved from the software to the researcher. This may be the greatest value of the medical AI software that I developed. Its purpose is not merely to generate predictions. Its purpose is to help humans understand the underlying system more deeply. Building the food reference database, 1 year of kitchen experiments. An aspect of this AI project that is often overlooked is the development of the food reference database. Before the AI system could estimate carbohydrate and sugar contents from meal photographs, it first needed a reliable method to translate optical information into nutritional information. This process was not automatic. I spent approximately 1 year conducting controlled experiments in my own kitchen to build the reference database that later became the foundation of the AI system. The starting point was optical physics. Every digital photograph consists of millions of pixels, and each pixel contains color and brightness information. However, pixel values alone have no nutritional meaning. The challenge was determining how different color patterns, brightness distributions, textures, and visu characteristics relate to actual food composition. To address this problem, I photographed numerous food items under controlled conditions and analyzed their optical characteristics. At the same time, I recorded their known nutritional contents, including carbohydrate and sugar amounts, through repeated observations and comparisons. I gradually established reference patterns for different food categories. These reference patterns included foods such as rice, bread, noodles, fruits, vegetables, seafood, meat, soups, and mixed meals. Different cooking methods and portion sizes also had to be considered, because they could significantly alter the appearance of the food and its corresponding nutritional content. Over time, a food reference library emerged. When a new meal photograph was entered into the AI system, the software compared its pixel characteristics against the accumulated reference patterns. The system could then estimate carbohydrate and sugar contents based on the closest matching food elements and portion size estimates. The overall process followed a logical sequence. Meal photograph gives pixel, analysis gives food element, recognition gives carbohydrate, and sugar estimation gives PPG prediction. This approach differed substantially from modern large language models. The system did not rely on internet databases or language processing. Instead, it relied on optical measurements, image analysis, a carefully constructed reference database, and physiological modeling. Looking back, the 5 years effort devoted to building the food reference database was one of the most important phases of the entire project. Without this calibration process, the AI system would not have been able to convert visual information into meaningful nutritional estimates. In many ways, the kitchen became a small experimental laboratory where optical physics, nutrition, mathematics, and medicine converged into a practical tool for glucose management. In later years, whenever I encountered an unfamiliar or special food item, I continued to record both its photograph and the corresponding PPG data. Through this ongoing process, the food reference database continued to expand and improve for more than 10 years. Each new food item provided additional calibration data, allowing the system to refine its pattern recognition capability and improve the accuracy of its carbohydrate, sugar, and glucose predictions. Before each meal, I would first review the predicted PPG generated by the AI system. Whenever the predicted PPG exceeded my target level, I would reduce certain portions off the meal and then take another photograph for reanalysis. I repeated this process until the predicted PPG fell within my desired range. Through this approach, I was able to maintain better control of my postprandial glucose. Since PPG is a major contributor to daily average glucose, controlling PPG also helped maintain overall glucose control over the long term. Conclusion: over 8.5 years, the average predicted PPG 112.86 mg DL differed from the average CGM measured PPG 112.99 mg DL by only 0.13 mg DL, representing a long-term agreement of 99.88%. This project demonstrates that artificial intelligence extends far beyond large language models. Long before the current LLM era, AI could be developed by combining mathematics, physics, engineering, image analysis, and biomedical science to solve practical medical problems. My meal photo glucose prediction system represents one example of this approach. The project required more than 14 years of research, over 9,000 meal photographs, and continuous physiological measurements. The resulting AI model achieved strong predictive performance while, more importantly, providing a deeper understanding of the relationship between food and postprandial glucose. One additional observation is equally important. Although I stopped taking meal photographs and discontinued routine AI-based PPG prediction after December 2023, the learning process itself never stopped. After more than a decade of continuous observation and analysis, the knowledge became internalized. Today, when I look at a meal, I still perform a prediction process, but most of it occurs subconsciously. Based on thousands of meal records and years of studying metabolism, diabetes, and human pathophysiology, I can usually estimate my postprandial glucose response before taking the first bite. The prediction no longer requires photographs, software analysis, or explicit calculations. Instead, it relies on a pattern recognition capability developed through years of research. In that sense, the AI system eventually transferred part of its functionality to the researcher. The software served as a teacher, while the accumulated knowledge remained with the student. Ultimately, the greatest achievement was not the software itself. The greatest achievement was transforming data into knowledge and knowledge into practical health management. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.